Fred Williamson stars as Duke Johnson, of course.
Of course. Of course.
They can't just have names like Harry Ingram.
No. Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson, you put white people who have never met black people in charge of naming black people. These are the names you get.
You get Duke.
Duke Johnson.
Duke Johnson.
YUNKJunk!
Hey, welcome to the Micheaux Mission, 2 men, 1 podcast, every black film ever made. My name is Len, aka the Bat Tribble. And as always, I am joined by my partner.
Hey, this is Vincent Williams.
Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, it is our first episode in the merry month of May. You know what that means. It means our annual dedication to black films that maybe on the outside like they may be a little dubious quality-wise. We like to call it May, I have another one of those bad black movies. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have a film that, is it a bad black movie?
I was about to say, we might be breaking the rule already.
I know, we don't know. From 1975, it is Bucktown.
Yes.
Starring Fred Williamson, Pam Grier, Thalmus, Rasulala, and Tony King in a film that is brought for your presentation tonight by our very special guest. If you are a reader of hardcore crime noir novels, ladies and gentlemen, then this is the man that you have been reading for the past few years. He is the one. He is the only. Gary Phillips.
Gary Phillips.
Here on the Micheaux Mission.
Yes.
Hey, Gary.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Gary.
Absolutely.
We can't wait to get into reviewing Bucktown. Before we jump deep into it, I'm curious as to why it was you chose to select this film, Bucktown.
Well, given the nature of the podcast, and you guys did ask me, well, what would be a film that I would recommend, and it had been some time since I had seen it, but fortunately, it wasn't so long ago that I did remember the sort of the basic plot, which I still think is a pretty cool plot, which is to say, and I guess we'll get into this when we start talking about the film a little later, but the idea that here's a cat who comes back to, I guess it's his hometown, but he's certainly come back to bury his brother.
Right.
And there's the racist cops are running over everybody and, getting their cut and bribes and this and that. And so he brings in some of his old, in particular, he calls on his old running buddy, who then, of course, brings in these other cats to clean up the town. But, of course, they find out, well, hey, you know what? It's good to be king. And so then they're going to run things. So the idea that there's this shifting alliance and and clearly this break between the two old partners, the two cats that grew up together. I don't know, man. There's something certainly classical or something even biblical about that. So that really it appealed to me then, all those years ago when I think I first saw the film, and then now rewatching it lately. It's still that element is still there, and I just think it comes through, and it, like I said, it's a great kind of classical flaws about the human condition and about these two guys trying to, both trying to make it, but both trying to make it in different ways.
And I have to say, considering your work, it seemed like something that did it speak to you from almost that perspective of this kind of, there is almost a noir, as you said, the morality is very, dubious and moment by moment. Is that
absolutely? Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. The idea that it's funny too, because I'm actually working on a novel now. It's a little bit different than what I've been writing lately. It's a heist novel, and so the main character is a professional thief. Now, it's a character I've written about before, but it's always kind of interesting to go back to that kind of character and look at the world that he inhabits. And so, in a certain way, of course, we know that Duke inhabits that world as well. Now, apparently, Duke has been more on the street. All right, I guess Duke started out just as shady as Roy, but I think but it seems to indicate that somewhere along the line, Duke more or less kind of walk the straight path. And if anything, right, Duke is the reason he gets motivated, of course, he respects, his dead brother and his town was his dead brother's town. So, yeah, I think those elements, I mean, you can't beat that for great characters because, nobody's a goody two shoes. Mm-hmm. Everybody has this dark and light they're trying to wrestle with. And absolutely, and I think, and then for me, that also makes great characters when you portray them on the page.
Missionaries, and each and every one of you are out there who are watching as we are streaming live from YUNKJunk, Philadelphia's premier video podcast palace here in Philadelphia, PA, streaming to Twitter, streaming to Facebook, as well as to YouTube, where we see each and every one of you missionaries out there in the chat. Hello, missionaries.
Good evening, one and all.
We're going to do things a little differently tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Just for the sake of Gary's schedule, we're going to get into our review of the film Bucktown, but we will be closing out the show with your emails. And don't worry, we still got a great top 5 game and 6 Degrees of D'Urville Martin that we will be playing with you tonight. Gary's upset that he won't be here for 6 Degrees of D'Urville Martin.
Yes, that's true. It's true.
But we're going to get.
I'll have to watch next time and come in. Yeah, absolutely, okay. Man. Great. That's great. Yeah.
Most definitely. Well, depending on how this review goes, maybe we'll try and get into that before you get out of here. Gary, as we mentioned, Gary is a writer of some of the crime noir that has been you've read over the last few years. He recently just dropped a follow-up to his hit novel One Shot Harry, returning to the world of fearless crime photographer and occasional private eye Harry Ingram, who, in the new book Ash Dark as Night. Ash Dark as Night.
That's pretty hard. That's pretty hard boiled, right?
That's hard boiled. That's hard boiled. But that's a black writer right there. Ash as Dark as Night. That's a brother wrote that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Most definitely, man. And this is an atmospheric dive into a city on the brink that's brimming with remarkable historical detail as Harry finds himself in the LAPD's crosshairs after capturing damning evidence of police brutality. Dun, 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 dun. I think that is really dope. Just the whole idea, the character of Harry Ingram that you've created, this photographer, private eye, seems to me walk almost out of the pages of one of our favorite movies, Devil in a Blue Dress.
Sure.
But with a cross with like LA Confidential. Something like that. How did you come to create the character Harry Ingram? But first, even before that, where did the love of noir come for you?
Well, then, it goes all the way back. It really goes all the way back to as a kid growing up in South Central. Well, initially, of course, I was just reading comic books. And in fact, in those days, in my part of the hood, you just read Marvel. You didn't read DC because DC was silly, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, in those days, it was before the retconning of Batman, with Neil Adams, and later Frank Miller. So you read Marvel, right? And those guys had angst, and the Hulk, hated to be the Hulk, and Spider-Man had anyway, whatever. And then of course, as we know, the Black Panther is introduced in the pages of the Fantastic Four. So Marvel had it going on. All right, so somewhere along the line, from comic books, I finally get to, I guess in my teen years, I finally get to reading real books. And I should always mention that my mom was a librarian, so we always had books around the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you just wasn't reading them. The books were there, but you was...
Exactly. I just wasn't reading them. So now I'm sure you cats know about Holloway House.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So in those days, Holloway House were those paperbacks for the young out there in the audience. Holloway House was a white-owned publisher here in Los Angeles, but they published, quote unquote, the Black experience.
Exactly.
They published Iceberg Slim, aka Robert Beck, and they published Donald Goines, Joe Nazell, among others. And those books you didn't find those books in a bookstore. You found those not in those days. You found those books on the spinner rack at the Thrifties, with the Thrifties drugstore, or the Ralph supermarket. And needless to say, those weren't my dad might have been reading some of those, but those weren't the books you didn't find around the house.
No. So your mom didn't bring those home from the library.
No. Those weren't on the pile next to Richard Wright and Zora Neale Hurston. That was not, no. But being out and about, as teenagers do, young people do, I stumbled on those, and at the same time, though, interesting enough, and we might say that those are all sort of kind of crime novels. And at the same time, though, then I also stumble on the kind of the classics of the crime genre, Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, and then a little later Ross McDonald. So all those so I started reading that material, and that's really how I then kind of got a love for mystery and crime fiction novels early on. And then I can't forget this either. So giving away my old age. This was also at a time when Bantam Books began reprinting this 1930s pulp character named Doc Savage. Yeah, and those had those great covers by the illustrator James Bama, which of course attracted you to these books. And so I also started to read those, as well as I think eventually they were reprinting The Shadow. Anyway, man, so it's, and of
you
course,
got all the influences coming together, man.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so that's the lineage of all the stuff that I write now. Yeah. Oh, and then the second question, real quick, in terms of Harry Ingram, he's really kind of inspired by two real life figures. There was a guy named Arthur Felig, also better known as Ouija, in the 30s through the 50s in New York. And he was a crime photographer, and he had a mobile photo lab in his trunk, and he had a little police scanner going, and he'd drive around in the 5 boroughs, a mob rub out, or some wife finally got tired of her philandering husband and put a knife in his chest, or whatever it was. He took all these photographs of the dead and violence and all this sort of stuff. And of course, he eventually burned out doing that. But anyway, so I knew about him for years. And then some years ago here in LA, I went to an exhibit at the California African American Museum for a photographer here in LA named Harry Adams, who I didn't know about. Now, Harry Adams was black. Arthur Felig wasn't black, but Harry Adams was black. And he was check this out, he was a freelance photographer and a part-time barber.
Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's right? A real black job right there.
Yeah. That's right. So once I learned about Harry Adams and then knowing about Arthur Felig, at some point, I use those two as kind of inspirations, because my Harry Ingram is certainly different from those other two, but certainly they were inspirations on the road to creating my guy.
Okay. And since you brought up so many pulp / comic influences, we also have to mention you have a bit of a comic writing career as well. I know. Angel Town is a certified classic, and Lynn and I were talking earlier about Vigilante Southland. So you want to talk about your comic writing a bit?
Yeah, I've had the pleasure to not write as many comics as I would like to, I might add, but I've had the pleasure to dip in and out of doing some miniseries here and there. As you said, I did Angel Town for Vertigo, or back in the days of Vertigo. I guess now it's it morphed into Black Label at DC. Anyway, but back in those days, and then also helping to revive my take on Vigilante, also for DC. But I've done some stuff for Boom Studios here, which is a comics shop here in LA. And now recently, then I've got Cold Hard Cash, which is running as a Comixology original, but this takes a character of mine, Martha Cheney, who I've written 2 novels about and a couple of short stories about. And she's a ex-showgirl turned kind of an outlaw character. Really, back in the day, it would have been Pam Grier playing her.
I was about to say she has a Pam Grier vibe. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. And she's a courier of kind of under the table or cold cash for the high rollers in Vegas, in modern Vegas. But in this story, she invariably, of course, is on the hunt for either money that's stolen or money that's taken from her or absconded from other people. And in this case, she's looking for money that's been essentially taken from another old buddy of hers, or old friend of hers. And she's come to LA to hunt it down. So yeah, I'm really pleased. And that's up and running now on Comixology. And hopefully in June, it'll get collected and then republished in print form.
What was the impetus to take her out of from the novels and then do it in a graphic novel?
Well, I had the opportunity to do a couple of pitches to Comixology originals, and I thought, and it's funny, Vincent mentioned Angel Town a little earlier, and Angel Town, that's Nate Hollis, my private eye character, one of my private eye characters. And I've taken Nate from comics, and now I've done a couple of anthologies with him in short story form. And so then I thought, well, let's reverse engineer another character. So the idea of taking Martha from prose and then kind of realizing her in comics form, and all credit to, of course, everybody involved in this effort, but in particular, Adriana Mello is the artist on this. She just did a outstanding job realizing the character, on those pages. But everybody did. Greg Lockhart was my editor, who shepherded this whole project through, and John and Tom. John was the colorist, and Tom was the letterer. I mean, everybody just did just a bang up job making the miniseries happen.
I'm curious. I'm sorry. I'm getting the process with like all this comics, because this is your character, right? And you're taking it into the comic sphere. Are you like very hands on? Like, like you got the artist that you want, but like as far as the letterer, like, no, I want the lettering to look like this. I wanted to have this type of vibe, because you've got this history of comic book pages in your head, and you know exactly how you want your book to look.
Well, it's certainly some of that. And Greg, who I mentioned as the editor, Greg Lockhart, and I talked a lot about that. Greg has a vast knowledge, and Greg himself is a writer and has several comics projects, including one for Comixology running as well. And he has a great knowledge of artists and all that, but also then understanding what the material was about and who could bring that look to it. And really, so we talked about that, and we talked about a couple of other different artists. We looked at quite a few samples, but in the end, there was agreement, certainly between he and I, in terms of then, okay, these are the people that can realize and bring the vibe, the feel you want into this material, to the page. Because you're right, as you said, Linus, it is very interesting about comics, and people often, I guess, don't think about it from the outside. But man, there's a lot of work goes, because this is, it's a detailed assembly line process. It's a lot of work to make a comic book, and so then, man, if everybody's not kind of in sync, I mean, it kind of shows up. It kind of, you can kind of get that sense of, oh, wait, this is not quite as smooth as it could be. And so, yeah, things have got to be happening. Things have got to kind of line up, and sometimes it takes work to make that happen.
Most definitely. One last question, and this is about the Harry Ingram, but maybe even any of your characters. I've always read, and even in some of my writing, and probably true of you, Vincent, in that you create this character, but there's always a little bit of yourself that you're putting into this character. Sure. So I'm saying, like, you talk about all these influences that went into Harry, but what part of Harry Ingram is actually Gary Phillips, like behind the eyeball?
Oddly enough, not so much of me is, but I'm going to answer the question because this has come up a couple of times. it's really my dad who shows up in Harry, but that was my dad and I were pretty close. So somewhat subconsciously, and you know, my dad has shown up in other things that I've written, but it's really, and my dad was a World War II vet. Now, Harry is a Korean War vet. Now, Korean War is sometimes as they say, the forgotten war, that war between World War II and Vietnam. And it's just that there are certain things about Harry, although I will say this, although this is something of the same with several of my characters, Harry smokes cigars and I smoke cigars. So there is that.
There you go.
But really, I think less me and more, not my dad so much like, word for word kind of thing, but kind of certain sensibilities or kind of that outlook on life of a man of a certain period in time, right? So, we're looking at LA in the 60s. And so I think in that regard, it's a bit of a homage to my pops, as well as then, oddly though, I think my stuff or who I am, or parts of me, show up in some of my other characters. Like I have another character, Ivan Monk, who's also a private eye. But Monk drives an old car and is kind of into old cars, and I'm kind of into old cars, and he's into jazz more, and I'm into jazz more. So certainly bits and pieces of me show up in some of the other characters, but certainly for Harry, I think it's definitely a bit more of my dad than me.
Okay.
Right. All right, so we're going to get into our review, ladies and gentlemen, now of Bucktown, our movie from 1975. After being hassled by the man in a southern town, a cool operator asked some violent friends for help. Because after all, if you can't trust another brother, who can you trust? It's Bucktown, ladies and gentlemen, from 1975, directed by Arthur Marks, a noted name in the blaxploitation film.
Right. That's
right. Written by Robert Ellison and starring Fred Williamson, Pam Grier, Thalmus Rasulala, Tony King, Bernie Hamilton, and you can blink, but you won't miss him, Carl Weathers.
Yes,
that's right. That's right.
In this film, brought to the mission by our very special guest, Gary Phillips. Gary, I got to ask you, what say you of Bucktown? And I'm curious, how much of a fan are you of these genre of films, the quote unquote blaxploitation films?
Well, man, where would I, man, come on, man, where would I be, man? Come on, man, where would I be if not for these kinds of movies, man?
Of course.
Listen, let me tell you something. If in a heartbeat, I would remake Bucktown. I mean, I'd remake it with a bigger budget, but I'd remake Bucktown in a minute. Now, I tell you what, the one thing I would change, I would, as we would say today, I would surely give Pam Grier's character some agency.
Sure.
yeah, that's for sure. But man, listen, you say what you will. Actually, watching it again recently, as I said, man, I've been so long, I'd forgotten, as we mentioned, I'd forgotten that Carl Weathers and Captain Dobie was in it. And, but it has its moments, man. So no, listen, on the whole, I was pleased watching it again, but and as we could certainly say of quite a few films of that era, man, if they would have had a real budget, I think would have really had something.
Yeah. This movie was only made for $375,000.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Stars Fred Williamson.
Do you know where it was shot?
It was
Kansas.
Yeah, it was shot in Kansas. Yeah, right in Kansas. Fred Williamson stars as Duke Johnson, of course.
Of course.
They can't just have names like Harry Ingram.
No. Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson. You put white people who have never met black people in charge of naming black people. These are the names you get.
You get Duke
Johnson.
Duke Johnson, who returns back to his hometown to bury his brother, who we never met, never meet, never actually see. So it's only through context clues that we learn that his brother's standing in the town called Bucktown. So Bucktown is not just the name of the movie, ladies and gentlemen. It's the name on the map for the city that Duke returns to, that has kind of like it's got its black part of town, but it's decidedly predominantly white. Well, I think it's a small town.
I think it's a tourist trap. Like, I got the sense that they say there's a river and people come across the river on the weekends.
You know what? They never named the river, so I didn't even catch that reference.
They say people come across the river, and apparently there's a military base.
Yes, I did see that.
So, this is the kind of cash, they call it Bucktown. You think it's a derogatory reference to black people, but it's actually like make a buck.
Time to make a buck.
It's a town to make a buck.
That's right. So, and by the way, they make a point that the sheriff, the white sheriff, was brought in originally to clean up the town so the
tourists would feel.
That's right. So the tourists would feel safe and come to Bucktown. And they make a point about that a couple of different times early on, about when they're rousting one of the working girls to not clip her johns, because we can't. Yeah, because we can't be doing that. That'll mess with tourism. So when they come here, make sure they have a good time, but don't steal their money.
Right. To your point, Gary, that's actually a moment that is indicative of something that frustrates me about a lot of these films, where that's a really interesting little plot detail that if just a little bit more care was given to the script, they could have explored that and, could have added some texture to it that is just not there because it's made for how much?
$375,000.
And we're churning this thing out.
Yes, we're churning.
Although, right, 375,000 was, I don't know how much that was in $1975. So it was a little bit more, but still. Right.
It's probably a nice budget especially for the movies, the black films of this day. But by 1975, Fred Williamson is becoming a bit of a name. Pam Grier's becoming a bit of a name. So they're eating up a little bit of that budget.
I'm wondering how much of that budget is salary.
Yeah.
You're right.
So we're talking about this film. Like we said, Duke, he comes back to town and he realizes, like you said, the sheriff is there to clean up the town. Mm-hmm. The sheriff and his 3 deputies. So it's basically like 4 guys. It's Andy Griffith and Barney Fife and Barney's 2 brothers.
Right. I think it's actually the police force from Dolomite.
It's great.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, this is not a crack team.
No, it's not. They're not.
These aren't top men.
No, they're not.
No, this ain't SWAT.
Right.
So they're cleaning up the town and they're running their little grift.
Sure.
As they're wont to do, which you learn again through context clues that Pam Grier seemingly had some type of relationship with Duke's brother, who was killed by the police.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
And I think basically because he just wouldn't get along or
he didn't pay up. He didn't pay on Tom.
Yeah. Well, he ran the club, right? He had the club.
He ran Club
Alabama.
Yeah, Club Alabama.
By the way, reviving an old name from a club out here, I guess in several different places, but certainly out here in LA, there was a Club Alabama back in the days of Central Avenue.
Oh, okay.
Get out of here. Was it much the same type of setup?
No. This is like back in the day when LA was officially segregated. And so I'm talking about like the 30s and the 40s.
Okay.
But Central Avenue was the place
strip
for Black life in Los Angeles. And so there was clubs along the avenue. There were doctors and lawyers along the avenue. There was the two black papers, the Sentinel and the Eagle. I talk a little. There's a little bit of that, a little bit of vestiges of that in One Shot Harry.
Okay.
The 60s, it was no longer its heyday.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So Duke runs afoul of the cops. He's like, yo, he doesn't even want to be there.
Sure. Because
you learn, again, through context clues, ladies and gentlemen, that Duke was a little bit estranged from his brother. He was out there in the world.
Sure.
Living his life. Maybe like I think you alluded to a little bit earlier.
I mean, they never really say, but what he was doing.
Yeah, he was maybe hustling, but like a hustler with like a heart of gold, I guess.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Or was he?
Whatever it is, a guy who looks like Fred Williamson with a black leather jacket on was doing in 1975.
Was he a soldier of fortune?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right. A little bit. I think a little bit of everything, but clearly, he and Roy go back. Right. So he knows. Yes. So he knows the call on Roy. So yes, as you guys are saying, it's clear that he and Roy were doing something once upon a time.
Right. They had seen some, what do you say, some heavy scenes.
Yeah.
They had seen some heavy scenes. It's like all these allusions to this action that happened.
I know. Yeah. Which sounds really fascinating. Like I want to see these heavy scenes.
Right,
like, can I get a please? Can I get a flashback? You know
exactly. Well, again, if we have the budget, we can give you.
Yeah, so tell me the flashbacks was in the script, but they weren't in the budget.
Right.
Couldn't do it.
Exactly.
I quickly saw there's a question in the chat whether or not Adolph Caesar did the voiceover for the trailer.
Oh, I didn't watch the trailer.
I actually did watch the trailer, but now I'm trying to remember if it was Adolph Caesar's voice.
I mean, if you have to think about it, then it couldn't have been.
Yeah, but there was a lot of sound alike.
Voice.
Yeah. But you're right. And Adolph Caesar spawned exactly. I think they had at that time, right? He was doing a number of them. So I think at some point they said, we can't afford Adolph Caesar. Get me somebody who sounds like Adolph Caesar.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
if you want to make $1, you come to Bucktown.
Fred Williamson is the man.
Yes.
Fred Williamson is Duke Johnson.
Grier as you've never seen her. Bucktown. From American International.
Shoot on them Geechies.
Right. Jeez.
That's great. That's terrific.
Damn Geechies. Oh God, that hurts.
By the way, I want you to know, and everything is circular. I'm doing I recorded some of my stories, and then I was doing a recording today of my buddy's sound booth. And by the way, I used not quite that line, but the word Geechee did come up in the dialogue.
So okay, we're getting ahead of it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just trying to tell you a little bit about the plot, so we can go in on a movie.
Right.
So, like you say, he Duke's not having a good time with the cops, so he calls his main man Roy, Thalmus, Rasulala to come to town and help them clean up the town. And I think they basically say, well, we killing people?
Right. Like, what do we mean by clean? Like this group of men need a clear directive. What are the parameters of clean?
Exactly. No ambiguity, bro.
Right.
And by the way, it does seem at a couple of different intervals, Duke seems a bit aghast at. Right, because he even mentions early on to Roy, something about you're getting violent in your old age or something like this, right?
Yeah.
And when they shoot one of the cops, Duke is like, oh, I didn't know we were going that far, but not. By the way, not that Duke stops them.
Right.
Of course, no.
Right.
No, it seems like I think he's just more surprised. Like, yo, dude, I wanted to take that shot. Like,
well, he tells Roy to bring muscle. So you get the sense he doesn't know the other guys at all.
Right, because he has to introduce them.
Right, he just knows Roy.
He only knows Roy, and Roy shows up with TJ, who's played by Tony King.
Yeah, the great Tony King. Great Tony King. Yeah.
Hambone.
TJ's,
who's played by Carl Weathers.
Yeah.
And then I think that there's a third person too. But
there's a third brother.
Is that TJ?
No, that TJ is Tony King.
Yeah, TJ.
No.
Yeah.
TJ said there's a third brother who's walking around there too. But and what I've actually was interested in learning, because I didn't know this about Tony King. Fred Williamson famously is an ex-football player, NFL player, and Carl Weathers is as well. But so is Tony King.
Yes,
I didn't realize that Tony King had played one. Yeah. So they're all like, so you imagine they're probably all friends from football, all come together, breaking into acting.
Right.
You know. So anyway,
and Lynn, let's not forget. As soon as he sees him, Tony has. How shall I put this so I don't get me too? Tony has incorrect desires for Pam Grier's Aretha.
Yes, he does.
I believe the word you said was incorrect.
Yes,
I wouldn't say they were incorrect. They were. Now, you know,
they perhaps were inappropriate.
Yes.
But you know, the man had eyes.
You know, so I understood.
Right.
I understood where, but you talk about how Duke is aghast. He seems to be aghast mostly at TJ. Because TJ is, you know, he's looking at Aretha, Pam Grier, a certain kind of way, which, like you said, it's like, bruh, like it's Pam Grier,
right?
And in this movie where there are other black women, there are other black women, and there's Pam Grier.
I mean, look, man.
So I mean, what do you expect? But then he gets to your point. TJ is like just maybe a little rougher around the edges, and that seems to set Duke off. Like Duke is like, oh, we shouldn't be shooting. Like I think TJ shoots one guy in the butt, and he's like, why you have to shoot him in the ass? Like y'all beating people up, you throwing people out the door, but you mad that he shot the dude in the ass?
Yeah. It's principalities at play.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Also, in this movie, and maybe this you could tell me this, Gary. Did all automobiles of the 1970s spontaneously combust when they were hit in the back of in the trunk?
It was a dangerous time. Cars just blowing up all over the place.
That's right. Well, it is the case. It is having this is perfect. This is a perfect answer because I didn't mention my dad was a mechanic, so I have a bit of shade tree mechanic experience of cars of that era into the 80s. By the time they get the carburetors, that's it. I'm done. Right? We get the computer chips, I'm gone. But it is the case that the fuel tank is in fact in cars of that era. The fuel tank is below the trunk.
Right.
Okay.
That's true, right? That's where the fuel is. But it is also the case, this is just for movies. It is very unlikely when you ram a car, even if you ram a car, in the rear, it would explode. They're safe. Even then, in the era of when you didn't have to buckle your seatbelt, even then there were safeguards built in. So it's pretty hard for a car to explode. They can, but not as much as need them to explode in movies.
Right. Well, in Bucktown, everything is explosive. Bucktown.
That's right. The cars, the women,
Everything. Exactly.
Everything blows up in
That's great.
Bucktown.
Everything blows up in Bucktown. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, buddy.
Oh God. All right, Vincent, what you got to say? Let's go in.
Look, it is. I am a fan of blaxploitation films in general, and you know, I like the energy. I like, you know, I'm actually charmed by the low budget, and you know, within that, however, you kind of get used to certain things, used to certain patterns, and we talked about it a little bit. The small town police were very by the numbers.
Oh yeah,
very sort of cookie cutter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's one moment where they kind of stay a beat longer than they have to with the sheriff, and they show him praying.
Oh
at
yeah,
dinner.
at dinner.
You know, and I said, okay, well that's a little interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then the moment is gone.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so is the film about dealing with the racist police and, as you said, the man, capital T, capital M.
Yeah, yeah.
And the moment a half hour in where Duke calls Thalmus Rasula's character, and they come in, I actually had in my notes, oh, the film is coming alive. And, you know, as we've kind of talked about, there's this, you know, they get off the bus and it's Thalmus Rasula, it's Tony King, it's Carl Weathers, you know, it's the fourth brother. And they have a pop.
Yeah, because they're walking down the street of essentially Mayberry in 1970.
Right. And I actually said, I wish they were more central to the plot than thinking they're just going to be Fred Williamson's kind of henchman.
Mm-hmm.
So when the twist happens and they take over the town themselves and now they're the antagonists, I actually thought that was really smart, like a little smarter than the film had to be, because now you have these big personalities bouncing off of each other. So that I enjoyed that part of it. Like I really just enjoyed watching Fred Williamson, watching Thalmus Rasula, watching Tony King, and, you know, these kind of three big personalities. As we've said, Pam Grier, you know, I hope the check cleared, because you can tell they really just wanted Pam Grier to be there, to be pretty.
Yeah, pretty much. That was it.
Which, you know, I don't think Pam Grier was the greatest actress, but by 75, I think she was a better actress than what you see in this film.
Yeah.
And
this is the same year of Friday Foster.
Right. Well, and by the time you get to Friday Foster, I'm sorry. What'd you say, Gary?
I would say, and after Coffee was already, I think, 73, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Right. Which, you know, for me, Coffee is like, that's her greatest role. Mm-hmm. So that was very disappointing.
Oh, most certainly.
You know, the Pam Grier. But
or the scene. I'm not just to interrupt, but just to interject. But or the scene where she's like the shrinking violet when you know, Tony King has essentially broken into her place. You know, and Fred's there to beat him down as Duke, but that Pam is just kind of watching, you know, and literally shrinking on the bed, right? Just pulled up as, you know, oh my God, you know. Yeah.
It's just is, and we're not saying that Pam Grier has to be the same character in every movie.
Sure.
Right.
But it doesn't ring true even with the character as they built her up to be in the beginning of the film, where she's like coming down on Duke because just showing up at your brother's funeral, you don't really care about this town, just go, you know what I mean? Like she's very, I can't even say one note. I don't even think it's whatever the scene needs her to do. That's it.
Now this was funny, talking about Pam Grier just sort of being there as this kind of sex symbol and sexy, you know, Pam Grier. There's a moment where she comes on to Duke and she goes to visit Duke, and she's of course wearing a Pam Grier dress that kind of amplifies her chest.
Her Pam Grier,
you know, and Pam Grier is gorgeous, and you're thinking, wow, this is the sexiest thing I've seen on the screen. And then Fred Williamson comes out with his shirt open, and a gold chain on and tries to out Pam Grier.
He does.
And I love that moment where, because Fred Williamson, if you know anything about Fred Williamson, no one loves Fred Williamson more than Fred Williamson. Like, Fred Williamson said, "Oh, I'm going to show you sexy."
That's right.
Yes. You know what? Now that you say that, it makes me think that Fred Williamson, when they cast him, and then they heard that they cast Pam Grier, it's like, what we need Pam Grier for?
I was about to say.
Y'all got me?
Right.
Let me see that script.
Right. But he literally walks into the screen with his shirt wide open and is like, okay, you going to be sexy? I'm going to be sexy.
I don't think his shirt has any buttons. Like, there are no buttons on the face.
Right. But yeah, I liked it for what it was. I enjoyed it. What about you, Lynn?
Well, you know what? I like you. When Thalmus, Rasulala, and all the guys show up, okay, the movie's coming alive a little bit. Because you mentioned the scene about the police chief where you see him praying. Right before, the moment before that is he's getting his dinner from his, I guess, maid/cook, who is a black woman.
Yeah.
Right? And considering that the other times you have seen black people in this movie up till now are they're either like prostitutes or they're just in a bar, not really doing anything. You don't see them anyone like, with a living, working, just living or working or anything like that. When Roy and the crew shows up, I was, all right, this is going, I'm with this. And then the switch comes and they become kind of like, the grifters in town. And I thought, oh, okay, so it'll be interesting. And how does do the black people work with them? What's that dynamic going to be? Right? Let's see them play with that a little bit. And while you see Pam Grier's character pretty much like, shout out like, oh my God, this is what, these guys, they've taken over the town. You don't really see it in action. You don't really see it like the effect on the townspeople as much. And I think that was a missed opportunity story-wise. Again,
sure.
And that is not something that is budget related. That's just, the script. You know what I mean? And this is a movie which, this is a 70s blaxploitation movie. This is a movie that is a little shy on the action. It's a little wordy. So they had the space to go there if they chose to, and they didn't.
Right.
And I found that a little bit difficult.
Right.
Disappointing.
Gary's nodding his head.
Yeah, no, I have nothing really to add other than I agree with that assessment that I think you could. There was definitely, see, again, we're going to get into the territory of why the desire to remake this, but the idea that you really could get into some interesting depth of character between not only just the notion of what is this thing between Duke and Roy and their past, but the idea that to a certain extent, Vincent, as you said, as the deputies are somewhat cookie cutter, our crew becomes somewhat cookie cutter too. So you don't get a sense of, well, wait a minute now, what does each guy want, and could that be something that develops, in the context of their relationship with other people in the town? And by the way, it's a heck of a long time. Maybe I think we're damn near halfway in the film, or maybe a little past halfway. We find out that the mayor is black.
Yeah. Arguably you get a little bit of the foreshadowing that the government is black when he goes to the county seat.
Oh, the county seat,
to settle the estate, and you see black people working there. But even like you said, this is a really kind of potential plot point. That could be explored, that the local government is black. And look, Lynn, to your point, saying that this isn't a budget thing, I think when we talk about these blaxploitation films, we talk about this sort of the sort of lack of attention, lack of care that a lot of these studios had. And certainly we start with the budget.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, it isn't always just like it really is just we see these scripts and you say, if this could have had another draft, two more drafts. And we say this again and again and again, whether we're talking about this, whether we're talking about Blackula, whether we're talking about, the Candy Tangerine Man, whether we're talking about, I
don't know if that could have saved the Candy Tangerine Man.
I'm saying again and again, we kind of looked at these films and say, oh, there's a nugget of something interesting here.
Yeah.
If someone had just spent a little more time with it. So, to Gary's point, I think this is ripe for a remake. I think this is ripe for someone to pay attention to the story.
Yeah. But as we know, in this time period, well, actually no different than now in that regard, you dedicated a certain budget to the project. You made the movie, and they used to call it four-walling, right? They used to four-wall the picture, right? And in that way, the movies, not only made their budget back, but they invariably Bucktown made a profit, and made enough of a profit that said, okay, let's do something else with Fred Williamson. Let's do something else with Pam Grier, et cetera, right? So it perpetuates itself in that regard, so that at no point, I shouldn't say at no point, but it's hard then to stop that kind of train from running and say, well, hold up, why don't we slow down for a second, take some of this money we've been making, and listen to the extent that he did. Listen, Fred, he directed and wrote some of his own stuff. Okay, it wasn't the best stuff, but he tried to take the reins of control, right? He tried to I'm going to make the thing I want to make, and I think that's great. That's what filmmaking should be about.
It sounds to me like you haven't seen Adios Amigos yet with Fred Williamson and Richard Pryor.
Brother, I've seen that movie, please. Brother, I have seen that movie. Yes, sir. Like I said, man, you got sometimes, what is it? What is that thing about your grasp exceeds your reach, or whatever that phrase is? Yes. Right? Yeah. But you gotta reach, brother. You gotta reach.
You gotta reach.
That's right.
Yeah, gotta reach.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
Oh, I kind of teed this up in the beginning. There's a scene where, if I remember, Duke comes into the room where, no, it's not even Duke. It's not Duke. I think it's Pam Grier comes into a room and she's looking for Roy.
Okay.
She's looking for Roy. And Duke's guys are there, right? I mean, Roy's guys are there. But Carl Weathers is not in that scene.
Okay.
However, there is a guy in that scene whose hair is almost exactly in the same afro shape as Carl Weathers, around the same complexion as Carl Weathers, but he doesn't have a mustache, doesn't have any lines, and they cut to him just to show his face. And then I think the other guy tells Pam Grier where Roy is, and he goes finds Roy. I believe that was supposed to be Carl Weathers.
Okay.
Interesting.
I believe that Carl Weathers was not available for that scene, because Carl Weathers does not show up in the film again until he is shot in the back by Fred Williamson at the end of the movie.
And do you happen to know what month this film was shot? I know it comes out in 75. I'm assuming it was shot in 75.
I know it was shot in 75. I don't know the month.
Because as you mentioned, Carl Weathers has a life-changing project right in the hopper.
Right in the hopper, he is Apollo Creed the following year in 1976.
Yeah.
I think they lost Apollo. They lost Carl Weathers near the end of this film.
Yeah.
That's
worth kind of looking into. That's a neat little tidbit.
I looked to see something. I couldn't find anything.
By the way, Lynn, it's great you bring that up, and I can't quite remember which film it is. It's another one with Fred Williamson. Oh, it might be Black Caesar. It might be Black Caesar. It's because it's a Larry Cohen film. I think it is Black Caesar. There's several scenes in Black Caesar where Black Caesar has been shot, and then we kind of go to the past to show who he was.
Mm-hmm.
And you never see, and they're hugging him and they're holding him, and he's bent over and this and that. But it's Fred Williamson's stand-in. It's not Fred Williamson, because there was some other kind of like that. Fred was doing something else, or they couldn't come to terms on the money. I don't know what it was, but it's Fred's double. It ain't Fred, because that's why they never show his face.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
There are certain scenes, and I believe it is Black Caesar, because I think he's shot in the beginning, and then we roll back to his life, and so it's kind of a similar kind of situation.
There you go. All right, so we're gonna we know we're coming up on time with you, Gary. So Bucktown, we've got to ask you the question that we ask, of every movie. Would you recommend that people watch 1975's Bucktown?
Even with all that we've said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Highs and lows, etc. I must say, watching it again now, after, it might be decades since I saw it, and I've seen it once, a couple of times, through the years. Yes, I would recommend Bucktown, even given all the caveats and all the what we laid out. I would recommend it as an enjoyable movie experience, and there are certainly scenes in that movie. Whatever you think of the whole of it, there are certainly scenes in that movie I think that stand up and work well and deliver an enjoyable film experience. Absolutely.
What say you, Vincent?
I say the same thing, and again with all the caveats that we've talked about, I think Pam Grier obviously has been in better work from this period. I think Fred Williamson, as you just mentioned, something like Black Caesar. I think Fred Williamson has done better work during this period. I just love Thalmus Rasulala. And I do have to say, Tony King is one of those actors from this period that pops up here and there, probably best known as playing Silk in the original Sparkle.
Yeah.
But I think he has such a presence and is such a force. And you don't get a lot of Tony King in movies.
That's true.
No,
so, frankly, I think just Tony King would sell it for me.
He was in Report to the Commissioner.
Okay. Yeah. And wait
a minute. Here's something else. I don't know if you guys may not be old enough to remember this. There was a show called Bronx.
Oh, yes.
With Jack Palance.
Yeah.
Tony King. Tony King was a regular in that show as essentially Bronx sidekick, buddy cop thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know anything about
I do.
I have to look that up because I do. I really like Tony King. It's actually a neat little documentary
about him
converting to Islam, I think.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, because then he starts working with Public Enemy, doesn't he?
I don't know.
I think he started working with Public Enemy.
And I do like the twist. I do like the twist. So, I think it's a blaxploitation film. I don't think your expectations should be but so high.
Yes.
Also, what is it, an hour and a half?
Yes.
Yeah,
which,
that's right.
That's right. That's that sweet spot.
Yeah. So I would recommend it.
And let's not forget the battle ram.
Yeah.
There is a battle ram, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, there is a battle ram. Yeah. You can't beat that. You can't beat that. Come on.
There is a battle. There is a battle ram. There is also a 20-minute hand-to-hand combat fight between Fred Williamson and Thalmus Rasulala.
That I think they're making up the choreography, the fight choreography, right there on the spot.
Right on the spot.
Right. That's right.
Right on the spot. I just love listening to Thalmus Rasulala's ADR on that joint, like,
And he splits his jacket. Remember, he splits his jacket.
That's right.
Man, he hulked up. Man, that jacket got split. That was great. Come on. That's oh, come on, man.
That's right. He said, Fred Williamson, you ain't the only one that can get all.
That's right. Buck. Yeah. Watch this, Fred. Man, by the way, that stays in the remake.
Yeah.
Baby, yeah, baby.
Oh my God. Watch this movie 2.5 hours. Well, the last hour.
That's right. It's one big fight.
It's one big fight.
One brother splits his jacket.
That's the best, man. Come on. I'm going to steal it. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to admit it to everybody. I'm going to steal it. I'm going to put it in a book.
Right.
Yes.
Oh, hell. Go ahead and watch Bucktown.
That's right.
Yeah.
Give it to it,
Bucktown. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Watch Bucktown, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, my God. This man has got to run. Gary Phillips, it has been so great having you with us, man.
Thank you.
Real pleasure.
It's been wonderful, you guys. I so appreciate having this discussion. It's wonderful. I love talking about this kind of stuff. Oh, it's terrific.
Well, then you will certainly have to return with another film.
Absolutely. I will do that.
Yeah.
I will do that. And we'll spend all the time so I can play, the 6 degree. Yeah, all that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. That sounds like a plan. If you want to get in touch with Gary, you can go to his website, ladies and gentlemen, gdphillips.com. That's GDPHILLIPS.com. Gary Phillips, the book is on stores right now. Baby. Ash, Dark as Night. Pick it up. The next chapter in the life of Harry Ingram. Gary Phillips, thank you so much, my man. Take care, brother.
Thank you so much. All right, y'all. Talk soon.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
Well, Steph. Oh, that was amazing.
That was amazing.
That was
good stuff.
Well, all right. We're 0 for 1 in May I Have Another Bad Black Movie.
I love it so far. I'm having a ball.
Oh, we are all having a ball, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to have a ball with Vincent and I invite you to join us live in person on Thursday, June 13th at Bryn Mawr Film Institute for the Chapter 2 of the Be Real Micheaux screening series, as the Micheaux Mission teams up with the Be Real Black Cinema Club to present the 5 Heartbeats. Because night like this, but where raindrops must fall.
Speaking of, take your buggy and show your outfits.
Yes, the 5 Heartbeats live on the big screen at the Bryn Mawr Film Institute, ladies and gentlemen. Tickets are on sale right now at brynmawrfilm.org. Join us for a live screening and talk back. It promises to be a really great time.
Yeah, good times.
Most definitely. All right. Let's get into it. Let's see what you all have to say to us as we go to your emails, or as we like to call them,
Missives from the Missionaries. So what else is going on, Lynn?
We have emails, Vincent.
Ooh, Missives from the Missionaries. Missives from the Missionaries.
Missives from the Missionaries, ladies and gentlemen. Vincent, this first one is from Nicholas.
Hey, what's up, Nick?
Greetings to both Len and Vince, as well as their special guests. That's for you, Gary. I am ready for the new episode. Before I start, I just want to say I watched Trouble Man, starring Robert Hooks and The Monkey Hustle this past weekend.
Okay.
A recommendation you guys should check out is Time of Essence. the magazine that celebrated Black women and Black culture on HBO Max and Hulu. It also has Micheaux fave Cheryl Lee Ralph featured in it.
Right.
Okay, I got to check that out.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, I was thinking to myself, a new concept you guys can try out,
Okay.
which is the Micheaux test.
Okay. All right.
I know for a fact you guys heard of the Bechdel test,
Mhm.
a test used for women in movies where two women converse about anything not relating to a man. Well, I thought it would be fitting for the podcast called the Micheaux test. You guys are on a quest to watch every Black film ever made, so the Micheaux test could be an interesting assessment. If you guys ever did a Micheaux test for Black movies, what would be the requirements? An example is Todd, the black cat, is I'm going to read this as he writes it. Todd, the Black characters talk about white people in some type of context.
Mm-hmm. Times probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I figured that might tell me what it meant.
Sure.
All right. So how many times the black characters talk about white people in
Sure.
some type of context?
Yeah.
Would love to hear your thoughts from a fellow missionary, Nicholas. Oh, I like that idea.
I like that. I actually apply it all the time in similarly to the Bechdel test with white film.
About
Are there enough Black people in the film that they can just talk to each other? A, do they talk to each other about something that has nothing to do with the white film, with the white people in the film? Like, do they have their own journey? Do they have their own existence in this film outside of being in service to the white character?
I just want to make sure I
So
understand.
like Whoopi Goldberg would fail the test all throughout the 80s.
Because she's almost as always the only.
And not only is she the only Black person in the film, but the only thing that she does in the film is kind of be in service to the white people.
Okay.
Like she doesn't have a home life. She doesn't have friends. She doesn't have a family. She just kind of pops up every 2-3 scenes to kind of offer sage advice.
Okay.
To the white people, and then she kind of disappears back into the kitchen.
Okay.
And I'm picking on Whoopi Goldberg, but so many films are like that. When there's a Black character, you get the sense that they're just sort of there.
Yes. So in a film that is predominantly white,
Right.
does the Black character have any type of actual life unto themselves?
Right.
So that everything that they're doing is not in service of the white person or the plot of the film.
Right.
Okay.
Like,
I'm trying to think of a movie where that would pass that test.
well, I can't think of a movie, but we were talking a few months ago, and I just forgot the title of the book, where they talk about these television shows and the controversies in the television shows. And I remember watching Sleepy Hollow when it came on, which, it was like the 15th X-Files knockoff that Fox had kind of threw against the wall to kind of stick, and it was like Ichabod Crane, and he kind of went through time, and Nicole Beharie played the detective, and then the two of them together solved crimes.
Right.
But I remember the first couple of episodes, they would get into whatever the shenanigans were of the week, but then like she would call her sister.
Yes.
And she and her sister would talk about things. Or like Phil
I know who you're talking about.
Phil not Morse.
It's not Morris, but I know who you're talking
Played
about.
like the police captain.
Police captain.
And then the two of them would talk, and it was like, wow, it's Black people talking to each other
Yes.
in a predominantly white production, not about the white people.
Right. But and I see what you're getting at there, but it's easier to pass that test with a television show.
Sure.
Because you're building up, the different characters.
It seems like it would be easier, but
there definitely are shows that fail that, but it's easier.
Yeah, sure, it's easier.
It's easier in that circumstance.
Yeah. But films fail it all the time.
Yeah, film. Yeah. I am hard pressed to think of a film a white film where because even like every Adam Sandler film that Chris Rock is in, he's in service to.
Sure. I mean, in Adam Sandler's defense, a sentence that I wouldn't say that often, he usually has a family though. Like, he's usually like married to Maya Rudolph or something.
Okay.
And but but that's a great test.
We gotta think about that.
Yeah.
We gotta knock that out. We'll hit that around with Maurice, our associate producer.
Yeah. Thank you,
come
Nick.
up with that. I like that. That's a nice
thank
idea,
you.
Nick. Thank you. All right. Let's go. We got an email from Michael Sykes.
What's up, Michael?
Hello, Len and Vincent. This weekend I watched Blackploit. Say the word.
You're gonna have to learn. You can't trip over blaxploitation.
Black movies.
You all right?
Like Superfly, Shaft, Together Brothers.
See, you should have got a sparkling water like I did to keep yourself nice and hydrated.
Superfly, Shaft, Together Brothers, Across 110th Street, The Mac, and Black Caesar.
Right.
I also listened to your podcast episode on Black Caesar, which I enjoyed. The one thing these movies that I mentioned have in common is brilliant movie scores done by brilliant musicians. Curtis Mayfield, Isaac Hayes, Willie Hutch, James Brown, Barry White, and Bobby Womack. I really wish I could go back in time to become a movie writer-director so that Curtis Mayfield could score my movies. Curtis doesn't get enough credit for the movie scores he's done. That probably is true. And that's primarily, I think, because of outside of Superfly, some of his films just haven't reached like that legendary status.
Sure.
You know? Len and Vincent, if you were a director-writer for a blaxploitation movie.
Look, you said it.
What? Now you jinxed me.
I know.
Because it's in the next line.
Yeah.
What genre in the blaxploitation category would it be? Like action, comedy, drama, or crime? And who would you have score it out of Curtis Mayfield, Barry White, James Brown, Willie Hutch, Isaac Hayes, or Bobby Womack? And why? Love your fan, Michael. So what genre of blaxploitation would you like to write or direct, Vincent, and who would score it?
I'm going to pick this because there aren't enough examples of it. I would pick horror. And I would get Bobby Womack to score it because I feel like there's always something a little sinister to Bobby Womack music, like his use of guitar licks. And like, I think, so I would do something quite honestly similar to Sugar Hill, but instead of it being set in Los Angeles, I'd have it actually set in the South.
Okay.
And then I'd have Bobby Womack score it.
That's interesting because I would choose science fiction / Afrofuturism.
Okay.
And I wouldn't choose any of these people to score it. Well, but listen to me.
And make up his own rule.
Because, well, you didn't choose one of those, the genres that he put out.
He said which genre.
And he lists genre.
Yeah, but those were examples.
So I chose science fiction / Afrofuturism.
Because there are all those. Give me one example of science fiction Afrofuturism from the 70s.
That's what I'm saying. There's not there. So
all right.
That's what I would write and want to direct. And my music, I would choose Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Okay. That's a good choice.
Yeah.
You're just making up things. All right, go ahead. That's a good thing to make up.
That's good, right?
Yes.
Right? Okay. I mean,
all right.
So there you go. That's what I would do.
All right.
That's my answer.
Right. Because they did such a good job scoring Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. Is that why? I know how much you enjoy Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, and Earth, Wind, and Fire, of course, scored that. You enjoyed the score for that so much that now you want to kind of group Lynn's magnum opus with Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song. Is that what you want to do?
We have an email from Michael Lockett. Greeting my brothers, Len and Vince, especially Len.
All right. Yay, Len.
I've never felt more a part of the Micheaux Mission than being cursed at. Once you can curse at or about each other, there's a certain ease and familiarity in most Black families and friend circles.
It's true.
I felt the love.
It's true.
It's all love, Mike.
All
that,
love.
bruh.
All love.
My time travels this week had the MCU line up perfectly as I got to rewatch The Marvels and my man T'Challa coming through in the Black Panther. The Marvels, in my opinion, is an enjoyable watch for anyone who can dial back their fanboy and girl mentality and proclivity to deft grip on white male characters and stories, especially in this genre. Monica Rambeau and Carol Danvers' part seemed like the joy was forced. Perhaps the MCU subconsciously was centering Kamala since they are more than likely building the Young Avengers and thus catering to tweens and teens everywhere they can. That's a good
point.
Good note.
That's a good point.
A quick note in regards to the chronological order of the overarching Infinity Saga story. Captain America, the First Avenger, is the first, followed by Captain Marvel, and then Iron Man, etc., etc., etc. Black Panther was as good on the 7th watching as it was the first 6.
Yeah.
So much joy around this character in this film. I think it percolated and spilled onto others inside and outside the MCU. I think Luke Cage, Black Lightning, Sam Wilson, and even Shang-Chi all benefited from Black people being seen in this light and felt in terms of money earned. Thank you for the top 5 comic books. Some I had, and some of them are now on the list. Listening to Vincent go in on people not being able to just have joy over Black superheroes getting some shine made me ponder what other Black superheroes or villains you two feel have never been put front and center as Black superheroes or villain. Does the casual fan know that Spawn, Tombstone, and Black Manta are Black? Sometimes I think yes, but then I realize I'm in too deep when it comes to comics. Love to hear your thoughts. All the best, Michael. P.S. Y'all have me crying over the Falcon's hands from Migo.
Yeah,
from the Migo action figures.
Yeah.
Which historically, ladies and gentlemen, the Falcon's action figure, which was released in the 70s, was the one Black character in the Marvel line of action figures. And while he did have a Black face like the Falcon character does, his hands were reused from the Planet of the Apes figures.
That's right. Migo was notoriously cheap. Like in Migo's defense, that was their thing, that they reused.
They would take from pieces from others.
But it is a little icky. And if you have a Migo Falcon, you can actually see the fur on the hands.
Yeah.
So that is, and it's a little icky.
Little icky. So to his question, Vincent, are there any Black superheroes or villains that you feel have never been put front and center as the Black superhero or villain that they truly?
One thing that I think about periodically, they when they announced that spinoff to Aquaman a few years ago, where they said it was going to be Aquaman the Trench, and then when they canceled it, it emerged that was really going to be a secret Black Manta.
Yeah,
that really that made me ache a little bit because I love Black Manta as a character, and even in the comics now, they've sort of repositioned him more as almost an anti-hero.
Oh, have they? Because I don't follow Aquaman.
But it's such a fascinating kind of concept. Speaking of blaxploitation films, what's our blaxploitation films? And we were talking about Black Playmates. What was our movie with the Black Lady Pirates?
Oh my God! Don't ask me.
Yeah,
I can't remember. I know what you mean.
That was the Black Manta thing. Like back in the 70s when they revealed he was Black, he said, I took to the seas because racism wouldn't let me be a man on land.
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out that everyone in Black Manta's crew was black. And he kind of leaned into that. And, because this was the 70s.
Yes, of course.
And, while they've dialed back that aspect of it as the years have gone by, there's always been this kind of blackness to Black Manta that I think has been more than ripe for exploration. Certainly after the success of Black Panther. So I'm always going to say Black Manta. And like I said, we almost got it.
Almost.
And then it went away. So I'm going to pick Black Manta.
I think the person that I would pick would be John Stewart's Green Lantern.
Yeah, sure.
And the reason why is because I recognize if Warner Brothers and DC didn't, when they dropped this ball, is that at the time that the Green Lantern, the failed Green Lantern movie came out with Ryan Reynolds, the Green Lantern for a generation at that time was the Green Lantern from the Justice League animated series.
Do not get me started.
Which was John Stewart. Because the one thing that if you are into comic books, if you've grown up on comics, especially we have, and I think we're old but young enough to realize and accept the shift that comic books are not the nexus point for people, for geeks.
Sure.
Anymore.
Sure, not at all.
That it was when we were coming up.
Yeah, not at all.
Right? It quickly shifted to television, to movies, to anime, manga, video games. There's so many other, points of entry into this world. And Justice League animated series was a huge success. And for there are maybe at least two generations, certainly a generation that would have been excited for a Green Lantern film when that movie came out, for that character to be John Stewart, who, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to put it out there, was, and every Green Lantern ever since, is more interesting than Hal Jordan was for most of his creation. So that is the right that I would wrong and really up the Green Lantern as a black.
Look, I'm not gonna, because John Stewart is one of my triggers. I have like 5 sort of egregious examples of racism in comics. And this John Stewart situation, as you said, by any metric at all, John Stewart is the Green Lantern.
Yes.
And let's be clear, there were maybe 5 white men in positions of power who decided we don't want it to be John Stewart.
Exactly.
And they jammed Hal Jordan down people's throats.
Yep.
And part of the reason that the film failed is because nobody gives a shit about Hal Jordan.
No.
And like you said, there are at least 2, because you're talking about the Justice League cartoon. I had a kid, my daughter was a kid at that moment. So I actually spent a fair amount of time on the front lines of like toddler and like little person, first, second grader. There was like 2 or 3 toy lines.
Yes.
After Justice League.
Yeah. Yes.
That John Stewart,
he's still the Green Lantern.
Because everyone said, millions upon millions of people across the world know that this is Green Lantern right here. And
you bring that up because even it's still true to this day. These cartoons, as much as we're watching them, when they succeed only as far as the marketing will succeed.
Right.
And that Justice League cartoon was marketed and all over the place. That meant all over the place. John Stewart was on your birthday plates, your balloons, the action figures. He was in the video games. He was everywhere.
I am not gonna get pulled in, but the history of, again, it's like less than a dozen white guys hamstringing Jon Stewart quietly goes back to the 80s. Like we talk about what happened with this, but if you, all right, go ahead. So you would pick Jon Stewart. Let me wipe the spittle off the corners of my lips, because you know how I feel.
I didn't mean to do that.
You know how I feel about this Jon Stewart thing. All right, go ahead.
Well, that's our emails.
Okay, thank you.
That's
Thank you,
our emails,
everyone.
ladies and gentlemen. If you have thoughts that you want to share with Vincent and I, please feel free. Send us an email to Micheaux Mission at gmail.com. That's MICHEAUX MISSION at gmail.com.
All right.
All right. Now it is time for the top five.
All right.
And not just the top five. I guarantee this will be Vincent's favorite top five of all time.
Ooh.
Hit that music.
Top five. Who's your top five? My top five is. My top five is. My top five is. My top five is.
Top five, ladies and gentlemen, where I come up with a list. I read said list to Vincent, and he shares with all of us his scintillating commentary on said list.
Mm-hmm.
Vincent,
yes.
I'm going to do this one in theme with the film that we are reviewing, Bucktown.
Okay.
And you will like this.
All right. What we got?
Because Bucktown stars Thalmus Rasulala.
Yes, sir. My favorite blaxploitation actor from the 70s.
Who do you know? Thalmus Rasulala's the name that he was given at birth.
I do not.
He was born in 1939 in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
With the name of Jack Crowder.
Jack Crowder. Thalmus Rasulala has a better ring to it.
Yes, it does. And he went to New York. He was born in Miami, but he went to New York in the 60s to become an actor.
Okay.
Where he made his Broadway debut under his original name of Jack Crowder as Cornelius Hackle in the all-hit musical and all-black cast of Hello, Dolly.
Interesting.
That starred Pearl Bailey and Cab Calloway.
Wow.
How about that?
What if there's some footage of that floating around?
So he's a bit of a song and dance man.
Oh, of course he is.
As a matter of fact, the company recorded a best-selling cast album in which Thalmus is featured on several songs.
Oh, well, certainly we have to see if that's. I wonder, would you look under Black Hello Dolly? But okay, all right, go ahead.
He was throughout the next decade, he was one of the busiest black actors in the mid-60s, appearing on Perry Mason, The Twilight Zone, and Mannix. However, it was in 1968 when he became one of the original cast members of the daytime ABC soap opera One Life to Live that catapulted him into the national scene.
Interesting.
And then throughout the next decade, he would go on to show up throughout the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Featured is Skeeter Matthews on Sanford and Son.
Skeeter Matthews.
He also played Ned in the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman.
Yes, he did.
And he makes an appearance on the first season episode of Saturday Night Live as a priest in the famous Exorcist 2 sketch.
I was about to say the Richard Pryor.
Next
the Richard
to
Pryor episode. He sure does.
That was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, he does. And you haven't even mentioned his big role on... okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Please continue.
So, keeping in theme, I present for you, Vincent,
Yes.
for your and our pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, the Thalmus Rasulala tapes.
Nice.
The best performances or most famous performances of Thalmus Rasulala.
Okay. All right. What we got? Nice.
Starting with number 5.
Number 5.
Where Thalmus Rasulala shows up as Omoru Kente, the father of Kunta
That's
Kinte,
right. That's right.
in 1977's Roots, which is a dramatization of Arthur Alex Haley's family line from ancestor Kunta Kinte's enslavement to his descendants' liberation. It was Thalmus as Omoru who holds Kunta Kinte
That's right.
to the starry sky and says, Kunta Kinte, behold, the only thing greater than yourself.
That's right. That's right. Yes, he did.
Do you remember him
I
in Roots?
100% remember. Yes.
Roots was
Roots was good.
Roots. I remember
Roots was good.
Roots hits the scene 1977. I'm 10 years old. I didn't know that it's coming.
Right.
But my mom and my dad, they told me and my sister,
Yes, that's right.
they're watching TV in their room. They said, sit down and watch this show. You can stay up late.
Yeah. That's real talk.
That's real talk.
That's real talk.
You can stay up late.
That's right. Because I remember being like, you remember when you were a kid and you would stay up late and you were so excited to stay up late, but then you realized it was late and you were sleepy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's real talk.
But this was like, you could stay up and watch this show because our bedtime was, I believe, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah.
And this famously, I think maybe if it came on at 9,
it went off at like 11. It was like 2 hours a night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were like, you can stay up and watch the show.
That's right.
And we watched faithfully all, what was it, 5, it was 7 nights?
I forget how many nights it was.
I think it maybe like the entire week.
Yeah, but like you,
Roots.
it was, I remember sitting up with the family watching it.
Must see television.
It 100% was.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So good.
That's a good one.
All right. Number 4.
Number 4.
Thalmus Rasulala shows up in 1976.
All right. Good year.
As Bill Thomas on What's Happening.
Yes, sir.
Bill Thomas is Mabel King's ex-husband and the father of Roger and Dee Thomas.
And I was just talking about him like 3 or 4 days ago and how radical of character he was. Because Bill Thomas, he wanted some Mabel King.
Oh, yes, he did. Now, to give you the backstory on What's Happening, he's the ex-husband.
Right. He's the ex-husband of Mama.
Of Mama.
Who, you know, I don't know if it's the 2nd or 3rd season, but he almost becomes a recurring character.
Well, I thought so too, but he actually only appears in 6 episodes.
Wow, it felt like more than that.
It felt like you were about to say. It felt like he kind of like recurs
but
a little bit.
every time he came on and he called her Peaches. And you know, look, not to put a fine point, like Mabel King was a big woman. And to see a woman
and Thalmus Rasulala was not.
Well, he's Thalmus Rasulala.
Right.
So to see a woman like her, an image of that woman sexualized and desired.
That's the word. Desired.
It is huge.
Yes.
Because like I joke, like I felt some kind of way about Mabel King because of him. Like, you know, my wife teases me, like I got this energy with Mabel King, but it's 100% because I was imprinted with how Thalmus Rasulala's Bill would talk to her.
Would hold her, hug her. Yeah.
Oh my God, I loved him.
I actually
on What's Happening.
I liked his character because while he was the ex-husband, which means that something happened between those two. I don't believe it's ever really spelled out what happens.
No, it's not. He just
But they're divorced.
Yeah.
But he is still doing what he can to be a part
Right.
of Roger and Dee's life.
And they've established that whatever happened, he's become a better man.
Yes, he's on the other side.
Right.
Of it.
Like the two of us can never. In fact, I believe the last couple of episodes, he has a new fiance.
I believe so. Yeah,
Right.
I think so too. Yeah, yeah.
But oh my goodness.
Actually,
Quietly, I don't know what you're gonna put above this because that's my favorite Thalmus Rasulala role.
okay.
Yeah, it really is. I love him on What's Happening.
Just continuing on this a little
Okay.
bit, reading about this, Mabel King often offered producers input on her character and storylines during the second season. And she actually requested that Bill return full time in order for the children to have, once again, married parents, showcasing what she felt would be a strong Black family.
Mm-hmm.
The producers disagreed with her unsolicited input, which resulted in additional tension on set and a much reduced role for Mabel King during the second season.
That's right.
Her character Mama was not written out of the show, but she was rather limited to brief appearances on set where she would basically say, I'm leaving for work or going to the store, or mentioned in passing by others as being at work. And then actually, I think eventually she actually does leave the show.
She 100% leaves the show.
She often leaves the show.
Maybe the third season?
Third season leaves the show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. Which, you know, this is a story you hear again and again on these 70s Black sitcoms.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because we don't even go into, we're talking about Thalmus here. We don't even go into like some of the contract situations that happened with.
Oh, my God. Yeah. But yeah, that is a performance that's very close to my heart.
This next one, this may be, and I got a soft spot for Bill Thomas as well, but this may be my favorite Thalmus Rasulala television role.
Okay.
And this is as Ernie Harris from a famous episode of Good Times in 1975
Oh, yeah.
called The House Guest,
Yes.
where James, John Amos, welcomes his childhood pal Ernie, played by Thalmus Rasulala, into the Evans household. Ernie regales the family with old childhood stories of him and James, who he calls Patches.
Right, because his pants...
because he was the poorest kid
that's
on
right.
the block, and even his patches had patches.
Right, his pants were more patches than pants.
Right.
He said, patches.
When James, who was able to... you find out that Ernie actually has a bit of a gambling habit, bad gambling habit, and is actually on the run from some hoods who actually have caught up to him at the house in the apartment.
Is that one of the appearances of Rosie Grier as one of the thugs? Yeah.
When James, who was able to get the hoods to leave by telling him that Ernie had dropped by briefly, but then split, confronts him, Ernie makes it out as if it's no big deal, saying, well, for $10,000, they kill you, but I only owe $6,000, so they'll only break your arm. But then he famously steals sterling silver salt and pepper shakers, which were a family heirloom worth about $80 that Florida and James got as a wedding present. When he is about to, they catch him as he's about to leave with them. He says, I bring them back, I promise, with interest.
Yes.
But they let him go knowing full well
Right. They never
that he'll never.
Yeah. Good episode.
That is a good episode. And as someone who famously had relatives that were like, play the numbers, and would say they're going to a game that night and everything, which I learned later in life meant they were going to like card games and stuff like that. Watching that, because there's a line where they basically say like, you got a sickness. It's gambling is a sickness. And I don't think I ever equated gambling as a sickness. I don't know if it ever really hit me even then as I'm watching it in real time when I'm watching it in 1975. But returning to it in syndication, that episode, it really struck me about like, yeah, that's real, man. because,
yeah.
then you start to see the parallels in your life.
Sure.
And characters that kind of like fit that bill.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
In your life, man. And like that's why that one really stuck out.
Yeah.
Because that also was a moment where you see, at least for me, Thalmus Rasulala, he's also putting on an acting clinic in that episode because he's as charming as hell.
Sure.
But he also, you see the demons.
Mm-hmm.
You do that. And I don't say like, like alcoholic demons where people kind of like get real showy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not showy, but it is all there in his character, in his performance in that role. And that's why that one always stuck out.
Yeah, that's a good one as well.
All right. Next, number two. Now, this is one that I had to check out on my own.
Okay.
And it's only worth checking out because of Thalmus Rasulala.
Okay. Fair.
And this is his performance as Frankie Steele.
Okay.
In the 1975 Mr. Rico. Are you familiar with the film Mr. Rico?
No.
Mr. Rico is a 1975 crime drama where a accused murderer Frankie Steele walks free thanks to the effort of a San Francisco defense lawyer, Joe Rico. But then, summarily, there are a bunch of cop killings that strike the city, and all signs point to the newly released Steele as the perpetrator, which now has defense lawyer Joe Rico, thinking to himself, have I sprung a killer? So he is intent on righting this wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Frankie Steele is played by Thalmus Rasulala.
Oh, okay, nice.
Mr. Rico, Joe Rico, the San Francisco defense lawyer, in his last leading film role is portrayed by Dean Martin.
Oh, well, come on. You're saying this isn't good?
No, it's not. I've watched. I've watched it Monday after Bucktown. Yeah,
Dean Martin and Thalmus Rasulala.
It's 1975.
Dean Martin.
He's like okay. Picture it. He's supposed to be a kind of like down on his luck, like defense lawyer.
Sure. Dog-eared
defense lawyer.
Sure.
But it's 1975 Dean Martin, spray tanned,
right. Rich.
Because
this is post real estate mogul.
Yes.
Dean Martin.
Yes.
Like
plenty of product in the hair because he's got the pump and and he's old, but he's still got to kind of like look like he's hip.
You're kind of selling it. I know you're not trying to sell it, but you're kind of selling it for me.
I'm selling you to turn it on. Okay. You won't make it 20 minutes.
Okay.
I'm telling you, you won't. You won't. He's like, I don't know, man. I might.
All right.
Don't say you haven't been warned.
Don't say. All right. Fair warning. All right.
But that's Mr. Rico.
Okay.
I had to put that. But, our, likes notwithstanding, perhaps the most memorable role of Thalmus Rasulala is number one. From 1972.
Okay.
It is the only film that I can find where Thalmus Rasulala is front and center on the movie poster.
Oh, okay.
It is his role as Sidney Lord Jones in Cool Breeze.
Yeah, Cool Breeze. We reviewed Cool Breeze.
We did. It is an adaptation of The Asphalt Jungle. Sidney Lord Jones is a convicted felon who was granted an early release by the parole board in San Quentin. While in prison, he learns about the underworld diamond trade from reading and studying trade magazines.
This one does.
It motivates him to plan a heist to steal $3 million worth of diamonds from the largest diamond brokerage in the Pacific Coast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In this film that it's Thalmus Rasulala like having a ball. Having a ball leading the troops.
And what is a theme for this this episode, it is a film that could have been better than it is.
Yes.
If they had paid more attention to it. But you're right.
Because the bones are there.
Yeah. But he carries the thing on his shoulders.
He does.
He does.
He does. And that's a movie worth returning to.
Yeah.
So don't see Mr. Rico.
Yeah.
But watch.
Well.
Michael, don't see Mr. Rico.
Okay, all right.
Watch Cool Breeze.
All right.
Watch Cool Breeze. That's our top 5. That's the Thalmus Rasulala.
That's a good top 5. That's a good top 5. You didn't even mention him as angry police captain in New Jack City.
I didn't.
With the gray, where the mustache was gray now.
I know.
He was angry police captain in New Jack City.
And
because these guys were real unorthodox.
I know.
And Mario Van Peebles said, we need some New Jack cops for some New Jack criminals.
Yes, in this New Jack City.
In New Jack City.
Yes. I didn't mention that.
You didn't mention.
I didn't mention.
His angry police captain.
Yeah, well,
where the mustache was gray.
He's not front and center.
He's not front and center.
So,
all right.
This is where he shines.
Fair enough.
All right.
All right,
ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for the Game of Kings.
That's right.
Otherwise known 6 Degrees of D'Urville Martin. 6 Degrees of D'Urville Martin, ladies and gentlemen, where I give Vincent 2 actors and he has 6 films or less to connect them back to that other mustache bandolero of 70s blaxploitation films.
Yes, sir.
D'Urville Martin.
Yes.
And Vincent, I'm telling you right now, I gave you a great top 5. This is going to be hard. D'Urville Martin.
All right. Fair enough.
All right.
What we got?
Okay.
What we got?
I'm going to give you an option of starting with number 2, number 1.
I'm going to start with number 1.
Let's start with number 1. Keeping it in theme.
Mm-hmm.
We are reviewing Bucktown, which stars Fred Williamson.
Mm-hmm.
In 6 films or less, connect D'Urville Martin to Fred Astaire.
Really?
Yes. Now, I checked to see if this is easily done.
No. See, this is where you messed up. Me, you, and Dylan, like a month ago, had a Gene Kelly conversation.
We did.
And which sent me down a rabbit hole with Gene Kelly. Now, what I should do is it's not really a cheat, but it goes against the spirit of the thing. I know how to get Lynn Webb's old-timey white people. Because they're all in That's Entertainment.
True.
All of them.
True.
Just all of them.
Right.
But
that's a cheat. Because that's an anthology. Like it's
was
clips.
it in the movies? Was it in the movies? Yes. Lynn Webb's old-timey white people.
It was in the film.
But however, because we were just talking about dancers and stuff, I actually went down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
So you might have to help me with the exact title, though, because this is the only thing that I saw where I think they danced together.
Oh.
So D'Urville Martin. Okay. D'Urville Martin is in 5 on the Black Hand Side with Dick Anthony Williams. Dick Anthony Williams is in Mo Better Blues with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes.
Samuel L. Jackson is in Pulp Fiction with John Travolta. That's 3. John Travolta is in Grease.
Yes.
With Olivia Newton-John.
Yes.
Olivia Newton-John is in Weird Ass Xanadu with Gene Kelly.
Okay.
Gene Kelly is it the Ziegfeld Follies?
Ziegfeld Follies.
Gene Kelly's in the Ziegfeld Follies with Frank Sinatra because they dance together.
Not Frank Sinatra, Fred Astaire.
I'm sorry, Fred Astaire, because I think it's the only time they dance together.
It is. Very good. Very good, Vincent. You got it. You got there in 6.
Really, though?
Yes. There was an easier
Fred Astaire. How do you get to Fred Astaire?
How do you get to Fred Astaire?
What is he in that I could have connected him to?
D'Urville Martin is in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Sidney Poitier.
Yes, he is.
Sidney Poitier is in what's the movie with Paul Newman? The Paris Blues. Paris Blues with Paul Newman. Paul Newman is in The Towering Inferno with Fred Astaire.
Is that his last movie?
Is that Fred Astaire's last movie? No. No, Fred Astaire's last movie is Ghost Story in 1981.
I should probably. I'm gonna see you just screwed up again. So now I have to memorize everybody in the Towering Inferno.
And there's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, and that damn Poseidon Adventure.
Oh my God!
Like those two.
Yeah, you've got a ton of people right there. Because in the Towering Inferno, you've got Fred Astaire, you've got Paul Newman, you've got Steve McQueen, you've got Robert Wagner. Who's the one from Heart to Heart?
Yeah, Robert Wagner.
Robert Wagner.
When they got together, it was murder. Boy, I used to love Heart to Heart. Boy, them two rich white people would go and solve boy.
And you know who else is in the Towering Inferno?
Who?
O.J. Simpson.
Yes. I did know that.
Yeah. So
yeah, Towering Inferno is useful.
Yeah.
I forgot Fred Astaire was in that.
There you go.
Okay.
So very good, Vincent. You still got there.
Okay. All right.
Got there in six.
All right.
It counts. All right. Next.
Okay.
This one's gonna.
All right.
6 films or less.
Okay.
You're gonna hate me. Connect D'Urville Martin, keeping it in theme. We're reviewing Bucktown, which stars Pam Grier.
Okay.
Connect D'Urville Martin 2.
Like Pam Dauber.
Pamela Anderson.
Is somebody in Barbed Wire with her?
Yes, I mean she starts with people. So yes, there are other actors in Barbed Wire. None of them you would know, but
right. Like so. Right. Wait. Shut up. Oh my God. All her stuff is like direct to video.
Not quite. I believe me. I checked to be sure.
Wait, what? Seeing it. She's not in Talladega Nights.
No.
She's not in Talladega Nights. But what she is in is Borat. She's in Borat with Sasha Cohen. That's where she is. Because I think she plays herself. Okay. There you go.
I wondered if you're going to pick that one.
There you go. What else would I have picked? I mean, I tried Barbed Wire, but I think it's just her. All right. So she's in Borat with Sasha Cohen.
Yes.
Sasha Cohen is in Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby, with Michael Clark Duncan, who's in The Green Mile, Tom Hanks, who's in Philadelphia with Denzel Washington,
yes,
who's in Mo Better Blues with Dick Anthony Williams,
who's in
5 on the Black Hand
with
D'Urville Martin.
Very good, Vincent.
Is she in anything? What is she in?
Well, she is in Barbed Wire.
Yes. Who else is in Barbed Wire? Is there anyone in Barbed Wire?
From the top of the call sheet, we have Pamela Anderson Lee.
Yes.
Tamaria Morrison.
Okay, that doesn't help.
Victoria Rawl.
Oh. Oh, so Victoria Rao, I could have bounced.
Why do I know that name?
She was on the soap operas.
Oh, okay.
But I think she was also, click on it. Isn't she in Eve's Bayou?
Yes.
So I could have used her
yes.
and bounced to Eve's Bayou.
No, she's not in Eve's Bayou. Is she in Eve's?
I thought she was the patient.
Now that I'm seeing her,
she was the patient that he went and checked on.
Yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. Because when I saw her, I immediately.
Louis Journey Smollett went for her dad to her house call, and she said, "I need some medicine." And then he sent Louis Journey Smollett out the room.
Right. No, when I saw her, I immediately remembered her from Distinguished Gentleman.
Oh, I don't remember her. Of course, I also don't remember Distinguished Gentleman. So yeah, I could have used Victoria Rao.
Oh, okay. Well,
who else was in Barbed Wire?
James Noseworthy.
Well, sure.
Xander Berkeley, Udo Kier, and Steve Railsback. Steve Railsback's the name.
And Xander Berkeley is why do I recognize that name?
Yeah, you know him. He's an actor. He showed up in Terminator 2, Candyman, and he was on The Walking Dead.
Okay.
He played Gregory in The Walking Dead. If you watch The Walking
The
Dead.
Borat interviews.
There you go.
Borat interviews. What's his name? It says Mr. Chocolate Man. I lick you.
I thought that Borat was going to be the one that you would probably go to. But the other movies that she was in Scooby-Doo.
Which I've never seen.
I didn't know if maybe you watched that with kids. And she was in the superhero movie, that parody film.
I never saw that.
And she was in Scary Movie 3.
Which I never saw. Are the Wayans in Scary Movie 3?
You know what?
Is that the one where they left?
I think they leave by Scary. Yeah, they're not there.
Yeah.
They're not there. They just get a based orange.
Is my girl in there? Is Regina Hall in that?
Yep. Okay. And Eddie Griffin.
Okay.
And Queen Latifah, naming all the black, and Kevin Hart, and Anthony Anderson.
So Scary Movie 3 would be surprisingly useful.
You may want to put that in your quiver.
Put that in the quiver. With Towering Inferno. And that's entertainment.
No, take that entertainment out. That's a cheat.
Was it in the movies?
But it's a clip
Was it
movie.
in the movies?
It's a clip movie.
Was it in the movies?
For those who don't know, That's Entertainment is actually a compilation of different musical scenes from the musicals of the 30s and 40s.
And where was this scene?
It was seen in the movies, but that's because
it was a movie?
That's because there was no other place for movies when they...
Is it a movie?
Yes, it is a movie.
Okay, then. Play with me with these old white people if you want. I'm going to pull out That's Entertainment. There you go. Were they in That's Entertainment?
You know what?
What?
No, you can't use them because those actors weren't paid for that movie.
I said about people getting paid? In the union?
We're in the union.
I said, we're not in the union. We were actually downtown today and I saw the Big Rat.
Oh, yeah?
I haven't seen the Big Rat in like 2 or 3 years. I said, it's the Big Rat. They're using scab labor.
Where were they?
We were like in University City? No. We were like around 38th. 36, 38th. Like they were
That's still new.
Yeah. I don't know if, but we sure was. Those of you who don't know, here in Philadelphia, we're a big union town. And when projects use non-union labor, the union people here in town have a big inflatable rat.
That ain't a Philly thing. That's just a union thing.
Is that just a union thing?
Yeah, that's.
I just see it in Philly. All right, but
it's everywhere.
Anyway, it's the Big Rat.
Okay.
So we ain't got to worry about the Big Rat.
No, all right. So you can use That's Entertainment.
So you think about that next time you pull something out of Lynn's old-timey white people bag.
Yeah, but then you got to guarantee that that's
I'm probably racist and probably anti-Semitic.
That's the show.
Not really happy about the gays either. It's Lynn's old-timey white people. Lynn's old-timey white people. Special guest appearance by a colored servant. Mrs. Johnson, I got your drink.
Get your ass back in the kitchen.
It's Lynn's old-timey white people.
You can email us, ladies and gentlemen, before we tell. Oh, yeah. Let me get this out of the way because next week it literally be the last episode of the Micheaux Mission. But before that, you can email us all of your thoughts and your concerns for my well-being at the Micheaux Mission at gmail.com. That's MICHEAUXMISSION at gmail.com. The Micheaux Mission is also available on all your social media, whether or not that be Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Micheaux Mission. You can also subscribe to the Micheaux Mission on YouTube, where you can subscribe, hit the bell, be notified of when we go live, when we put up our shorts and our clips from the show. And if you watch these videos all the way to the end, that really helps us because it pushes it out. YouTube will then push it out to other movie lovers such as yourself. And if you don't watch the movie to the end because you got to the haha, share that haha with a friend and family and have them subscribe to the Micheaux Mission. You'll be glad you did. All right. You can also check out the Micheaux Mission as we stream live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. from YUNKJunk, Philadelphia's premier video podcast palace. If you want to book your podcast in one of the many studios that they have, you can't have this set. This is the Micheaux set. This is our chairs, our mics. But there are tons and tons of rooms out here, and there are multiple Dylans that just run from room to room, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want a Dylan of your own, email Dylan at YUNKJunk.com and book your time at the studio here in Philadelphia's premier video podcast palace, where you can find the Micheaux Mission, a proud member of The Podglomerate, thepodglomerate.com. They make podcasts work, such as ours, may be coming to an end next week. Next week, or may I have another bad black movie, we have a friend of ours, friend of the show. Our man, L. Ade Williams of the Harlem Connection will be joining us here, and he has a thesis that he would like to run by you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, he would.
As we take a look in the month dedicated to bad black movies at the entire filmography of Prince.
Controversial.
Yes, the entire filmography. And by that, I mean Purple Rain.
Of course.
Under the Cherry Moon.
Okay.
Graffiti Bridge.
If we must.
And even Batman. Girl 6. I don't even know what other bags he has up his to bring, but next week, here's the thing. Al has his own radio show, ladies and gentlemen, out in New York, where he could have just done this on his radio show. But no, he wants to bring this mess to the Micheaux Mission.
Sure. Because Prince fans are known to be reasonable.
Dude, no sooner than the newsletter went out showing what we are going to be reviewing over the next couple of weeks. Because, mind you, we haven't even said what we're reviewing for the rest of May because we don't know if we're still going to be doing the show. But no sooner than the newsletter goes out, I think 2.5 seconds, I get an email from Prince's #1 fan, Tanya Pendleton.
Are we in trouble with Tanya?
You guys want to come on the show to talk about what y'all watching on the Micheaux Mission? We've already got the invite to come on.
Oh boy.
So,
all right.
Clutch your purple pearls, ladies and gentlemen, and tune in next week here on the Micheaux Mission. Until then, he's Vincent, I'm Len, and in parting, we say,
we'll see you when it's time to meet again.
YUNKJunk!